Thank you all for standing by. We will now begin the Technical Women's Organization 2024 Women's History Month program, Leveling the Playing Field Through Advocating and Inclusion. As a reminder to all the participants, both your audio and video are disabled by default, but if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A or chat buttons at the bottom of your screen. Katie, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, and good morning. Thank you very much for spending an hour of your time this morning with us. TWO is so excited to be celebrating Women's History Month with you all here today. Today's program is another installment of our Women's History Month program titled Speak Up for Your Career Progression. With this, I am thrilled to hear from our panelists today, and I hope you are as well. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, all of which I think we all can relate to at some point, and I am excited to hear what their thoughts are on how to speak up for our own career progression. So please enjoy our event today in honor of Women's History Month. I would like to turn the mic over to Bridget Turner, our national president and host of today's event. Before that, I want to give a big thank you to our panelists and our Women's History Month committee for orchestrating this fabulous event. Bridget, thank you for your leadership, and over to you.
Thank you, Katie, for such a wonderful welcome and bringing us into the second part of our three-part Women's History Month series. So thank you so much for welcoming everyone. I also send a welcome as well. So greetings. My name is Bridget Turner, and I am the National President of the Technical Women's Organization, TWO. Happy Women's History Month. I would like to welcome you to our second part of the three-part Women's History Month series, Leveling the Playing Field Through Advocating and Inclusion. Well, we're celebrating women who are doing such as that. In addition, on Wednesday next week, March 27th, we will be spotlighting STEAM achievers and recognizing them for their contributions in the area of STEAM. So please join us for that as well. Women's History Month is a celebration of women contributing to history, culture, and society, and has been observed annually in the month of March since 1987 in the United States. TWO supports Women's History Month by acknowledging and recognizing the achievements, leadership, courage, and strength of women who have made valuable contributions, not only to the aviation industry, but to the world at large. So I also invite you to participate and enjoy today's program with our wonderful panelists and our moderators, and a little fun that we have for you today. At this time, we actually would like to take a few minutes during our program to celebrate our own TWO member, Miss Lisa Adams. At this time, we're going to swear Miss Lisa Adams, our headquarter regional director, in for TWO officer. Lisa, if you can please come on camera, and we're going to take this time out to swear you in as our 2023-2024-25 headquarters regional director. Lisa, how are you today?
Good morning, Bridget. I'm good, doing great.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, we are honored to have Lisa here with us. She is returning in our as our regional director. And what more benefit of time during Women's History Month is to swear in our officer. So Lisa, I ask that you raise your right hand and take this time to repeat after me as I swear you in your position. So please listen carefully and repeat. On this 20th day of March, 2024, I state your name.
Lisa Adams.
Repeat after me after this. Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the position
the duties of the position
of Regional Director
of Regional Director
and will abide by
and will abide by
and uphold the Constitution and bylaws
and will uphold the Constitution and the bylaws
of the Technical Women's Organization.
of the Technical Women's Organization.
I vow to provide support,
I vow to provide support,
promote understanding,
promote understanding,
and create a climate of
and create a climate of
cooperation between professionals
cooperation between professionals
in technical fields
in technical fields
within the FAA
within the FAA
for the purpose of aviation safety.
for the purpose of aviation safety.
Lisa, congratulations on being our headquarters regional directors. Let the records and the minutes reflect that you are now officially a member of TWO Executive Board and have been sworn in properly. Congratulations, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining in, and once again, congratulations to Lisa and being sworn in. And we are so honored to take this time during Women's History Month to swear in another regional director of TWO. Now, at this time, I would not hold you up any longer. We have some fun and trivia for you. So at this time, I would turn it over to Miss Helen Davis. Helen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bridget. I am going to share my screen so for a little bit of fun. Congratulations, Lisa. So we are going to play a little movie trivia. Everybody get their fingers ready to put it in the chat or keep it to yourself.
Technical Women's Organization 2, Women's History Month 2024, leveling the playing field through advocating and inclusion.
The following will provide a single photo from a film or movie about females and in support of females in celebration of the media industry support of women. Feel free to post your answers either in the chat or keep them to yourself, but let's have some fun. First, can you name what movie this is in 10 seconds or less from this photo? Ready? The 2019 biopic, Harriet, covers escape from slavery from abolishist, I can't say that word, freedom fighter Harriet Tubman, as well as her early career as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Next, can you name this film in 10 seconds or less? Suffragette is a 2015 film based on young working mother Emily Pankhurst in 1912 in London. She was forced into radical politicalism, activism, supporting the right for women to vote and willing to meet violence with violence to achieve this in the end. We've seen a lot of that in our history, right? Next, can you guess this documentary in 10 seconds or less? Fly Like a Girl. It's a 2019 documentary that follows women who dare to aim higher, from Lego-loving young girls who include female pilots in her toy airplanes to courageous women who helped lead shuttle missions to space. It's a movement of young girls and women relentlessly pursuing their passion for aviation, a field currently dominated by men. Ready for the next one? Name this film in 10 seconds or less. I bet you a lot of people can name this one. My timer wasn't going off for a minute. Okay, Who wouldn't know these hidden figures today from the 2016 movie about their brilliant scientific or mathematical minds? We can now know and celebrate these females who worked at NASA. Set in the 1960s Virginia, the film centers on three pioneering African-American women whose calculations for NASA were integral to several historic space missions, including John Glenn's successful orbit of the Earth. Here comes the next one. Guess this movie in 10 seconds or less. Can anyone remember this one? RBG's story was told in the 2018 movie, displaying her struggles for equal rights and the early cases of a historic career that led to her nomination and confirmation as U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice. Thank you, Ruth. Okay, who can name this one? I haven't even heard this one in 10 seconds or less. The 2020 movie, both written and directed by Julie Taymor, depicts the story of feminist icon Gloria Steinemann's nomadic and illiterate childhood and its influence on her life as a writer, activist, and organizer for women's rights worldwide. I've got to stop talking with my hands. Okay, who can guess this movie in 10 seconds or less? This one, a little older one. Okay, the 1983 film Silkwood follows Karen Silkwood, a worker at an Oklahoma Kerr-McGee plutonium processing plant in the 1970s. Karen was a nuclear whistleblower and a labor union activist who investigated alleged wrongdoings at the Kerr-McGee plutonium plant where she worked, as she endured being purposely contaminated, psychologically tortured, and possibly murdered to prevent her from exposing worker safety violations at the plant. Next, are we ready? Name this movie in 10 seconds or less. These are dynamic ladies that came before us, that fought for us. This 2005 American drama film is a fictionalization account of the first major successful sexual harassment case in the United States of Jensen versus, and I say this wrong each time, Elvith Mines, where Josie Ames, who endured a range of abuse while working as a minor, filed and won the landmark 1984 lawsuit. Ready for the next one? And I believe the final one? Who can name this documentary in 10 seconds or less? I think we've all heard about this one recently. Where's my timer again? There it is. Yay! Okay, this 2015 documentary explores Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala Yousafzai, Yousafzai fearless life as she became a Pakistani activist shot in the head by the Taliban at 15 years of age for speaking up for girls and their right to an education. The film further interviews young women and girls about the Yousafzai impacts, which is really cool to hear if you haven't heard it yet. Now, this is the final one, and now we close.
If you're in need of inspiration on how to make a difference, there are plenty of female role models to turn to. No matter what you're interested in, whether it's cybersecurity, aviation safety, aviation law, finance, communications, contracts, or engineering, it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the women who have come before you so you can better understand how to follow in their footsteps. Thank you.
Hopefully a lot of, hey, I could not see the chat, but I was guessing that a lot of you were putting in it. So thank you very much for participating. I surely enjoyed putting this together. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't know. So back to you. Who do I hand this off to? I apologize, Bridget. Lorna, it's back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Ms. Marie Kennington Gardner. Marie Kennington Gardner boasts an extensive career spanning over 3 decades in the aviation sector. She commenced her professional journey with the Federal Aviation Administration in 1991, assuming the role of electronics engineer. In this capacity, she spearheaded initiatives for the operational test and evaluation of the FAA's first generation of digital surveillance radars and Doppler weather radar systems within the FAA's Eastern region. In 2008, during a year marked by significant aviation delays, she was appointed by the Secretary of Transportation to serve as the industry air czar. As the director of the New York Area Program Office, or as we call NIAPIO, she assumed responsibility for coordinating projects to mitigate airport congestion within the nation's most complex airspace. Presently, Marie Kennington Gardner holds the position of Regional Administrator for the FAA's Eastern Region. Additionally, she serves as the liaison for the Women in Aviation International. Her academic credentials include a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Manhattan College, go to City, and a Master of Science Management of Technology degree from NYU's Polytech. And with that, I would like to let Marie talk more about herself, and I will pass the mic to you, Marie. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for this opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my journey and, and some thoughts on advocacy and inclusion. First off, I want to say congratulations to the woman that was just sworn in. And I guess I'll give you a little bit on my background. So I started with the agency in 1991 as an electronics engineer, and I was a field engineer. So I started, hit the ground running almost immediately. I was part of a very small surveillance team out of the Eastern region. And even as two women in our group, which was great because it made transition into the role a little bit easier, although we were on continuous travel and we never traveled together. Very rarely did we travel together. So I, at a very young age, developed a real love of electronics, and I was very inquisitive. I loved taking things apart. I loved even more putting them together with parts left over, which is something that seemed to happen quite a bit. And the reason why I even bring up like my very early upbringing into a technical field is because it has something to do with how I feel your journey through advocacy and inclusion, how that leads to advancement in your career going forward, is because at a very young age, I was part of a very big family. I have 5 sisters and my mom, so there were 8 people in my house. My dad was the only male. Lots of female influence very early on. But the one thing that I think stoked my my love of electronics and electronic problem at large, and which led into engineering, was my dad was never home, obviously, because he had to take care of a family of 8. He had 3 jobs. He was never around. So whenever something would break in the house, my dad would pick up the phone. He was a New York City firefighter, so he'd pick up the phone and he'd say, "Put Marie on the phone. I'm going to step you through this." And I was in charge of fixing anything that broke in the house. And the reason I love to do it is because I love the satisfaction of completing a job. And I loved even more that it was something that my dad and I had. It bonded our relationship. So from very early on, praise drove me even further, right? So then when it came time for college choices, I wanted to do something that parlayed off of that love and knowledge of electricity and problem solving and what more I could do. So I went into electrical engineering, and that was in the 80s, a real long time ago. And I was in a really small class of female electrical engineers in Manhattan College. And, you know, we bonded. We gravitated to each other because of the fact that, you know, there were so few of us. And then I stepped out for a moment, thought I wanted to be a nuke, do nuclear power, did that very briefly. But as for very many of the points that Silkwood brought up, I decided nuclear was not the way to go, and really quickly then ended up over in the FAA, which was fantastic because the one thing that I could say from the get-go with the FAA is responsibility is something nobody will ever push you away from. At a very early time in my career, if you were going to take on a project, nobody ever said no, and they'd let you run with it as far as you could. You know, they give you enough rope to hang yourself with it, and that's how you learn very quickly. You know, trial and error. I have to say that I think it's somewhat ironic that the title of this particular session is Speak Up, because from my perspective, advocacy and self-advocacy starts with your actions, not so much your speech, right? It's because from your actions, when you get those early successes, it starts to build confidence. That you know what you're doing, and that confidence allows you to walk into a couple more rooms, right? Which then, when you start then to parlay those actions with, you know, speaking up, going to meetings, identifying things that need to be fixed that maybe nobody else saw, then that confidence turns into credibility. And that to me is a critical step, because when you speak with credibility, because people know you know what you're talking about because you have a couple of successes behind you, the inclusion somewhat comes automatically from there. People are looking for you. They're seeking out your opinion to bring you to the table because they know you've had a couple of experiences that parlayed into success. And from my perspective, I think that, you know, the actions, parlaying them into confidence, going into credibility, and then going into inclusion is the best message I could turn over for, you know, how does advocacy and inclusion lead to a successful career path in the FAA. I can tell you the one thing that I take up all the time on this panel, because we have numerous panelists who've had successes in their careers. But one thing that I want to say is, in order to be a self-advocate for yourself, there is one thing that I think, if I could identify, that really helped me as well. And that is, you know, everybody always talks about moving up and moving on in their career and, you know, graduated to the next level. For me, one of the biggest successes was actually not a step forward I took, it was a step to the side. And it was during a period of time when they were forming the service areas, and I had an opportunity to continue. I was doing great things and had a lot of great recognition for the work I was doing in the surveillance arena, and I was offered an opportunity to go to Atlanta, and it just didn't fit with where I was with my family, and I just knew I wouldn't thrive in the environment because my family would be left behind in New York. And so I elected at that point in time, I actually took a step back. I got demoted. Well, I took a demotion, but it was briefly, it was for a couple of months, and then a lateral over to another position, which, as I said, it's somewhat of a, you know, it doesn't seem intuitive, but for me, it spring loaded where I was going to go with the next couple of steps in my career. And with that, I'd like to turn it over back to Lorna and the rest of the panelists for them to share their insights on advocacy and inclusion.
Thank you so much for that, Marie. there were some comments that are coming in through the chat, and Catherine writes, I can remember a time trying to explain to my doctor and corporate executive uncles that I worked in IT, and they asked, what is that? So Mrs. Gardner was ahead of the pack with a dad that understood electronics with her, which is excellent. Sharon also love it. Confidence creates credibility, and so true, and repositioning is critical. So love it. And Carmel, I can't see the rest of your name, but Carmela writes, that is so brave, Marie. And Stephanie writes, I love the honesty and drive. So that's awesome, because this is things that all of us have experienced as women. I was talking to Rhonda before we got on about, just basic stuff like you were working out in the field, bathrooms for women, that was always a conversation, like, where do you go, right? If there wasn't a building around where the secretaries worked, I basically had to I was on my own,
That was always a challenge when you were working on the radar at Andrews Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Because if you stepped outside the shelter, you were subject, and they were on a lockdown. It was not going to be a pretty thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it was always an issue, always an issue. Constance White writes outstanding journey. And Joyce Watkins, we know Joyce, wrote love Marie, love it. So with that, we will go ahead and move on to our panel discussion today. So if our other panelists can come on board, I will do the introductions, talk a little bit about their history. So join us on the panel today will be Miss Bridget Turner. Marie, you can stay on because you're a panelist also. Sharice James and Rhonda Carter. So we heard about Marie's background and Bridget's background. Bridget's background is that she has been with the Federal Aviation Administration since 1993 as an Airway Transportation System Specialist, ATSS, in communication and automation out of Chicago, Illinois, and Indianapolis. She is currently the Program Support Specialist in the Washington, D.C., Leesburg, Virginia, where she's responsible for over 300 employees' training path to certification of the National Airspace Equipment, environmental safety, that's the EOSH, and managers career training. Bridget is the national president of the Technical Women's Organization, too, with over 300 members whose creed is to provide support, increase awareness, promote understanding, and create a climate of advancement for technical professionals supporting aviation safety. So thank you for joining us. Well, next person we have on our panel today is Sharice James, who has been with the federal government for 11 years. She began her career with the Department of Veteran Affairs in the Bronx, New York, as a licensed social worker. She assisted veterans in locating and maintaining housing, gaining employment, and providing psychosocial therapy. Sharice has joined the FAA as a management and program analyst / WTF focal. She currently analyzes data entry to ensure accurate data integrity. And Ms. Rhonda Carter started her career with the FAA in 2014 as an engineering technician based in Wichita, Kansas. She's currently based in Shreveport, Louisiana. During her career, she's been involved in hands-on plumbing, electrical, and general maintenance of terminal Doppler weather radar, airport surveillance radar, precision approach path indicators, or PAPI, which keep the airport safe and airplanes on the right track. Rhonda is also a military veteran. So with that, we will jump into some questions for our panel today. So if you see me looking over here, I have another screen going on. So what I want to do is I'm just going to start with a round robin question. We'll start with Marie, we'll go to Bridget, Sharice, and then Rhonda. So tell us in a couple of sentences how you became part of the agency.
So I was working, as I said, in the nuclear field with Con Edison, major utility. And for a couple of health reasons, I thought it wasn't. I would have embarked on a bigger career with being a health physics technician, which basically that's the crew that goes into the plant. They take the radiation against a baseline, identify any electrical alarms or shortcomings that are in the containment area, and then they go back out. And I decided, while it was a bold move and I thought it would be a great place to start, probably not such a good idea. So I, ironically, that very day got a call from Don Actually got called for an interview and started my career with the FAA right after that.
Excellent. Thank you, Marie. Bridget, over to you. Same question.
How did I get started in the agency?
Mhm.
I guess I've been in the agency now for 30 years. I actually started off with the CTI program. They came to our college looking for electronic technicians, but they came to the aviation department. And we was like, why did you go to the aviation department instead of the electronics department or the technical training department? So I started off as a CTI student in F&E, facility and equipment. I think now it's called engineering services. And I'm from Chicago, Illinois. So I started off as a student intern working with the agency up in the Chicagoland area. The ironic part is I had to finish, my degree is in biomedical equipment. So originally they were not going to pick me because they felt that they could not do me justice in offering me a job. But my background of associate degree was electronics. So all of that said, I actually had to finish up my biomedical equipment degree. I got a call one day and they was like, oh, we're looking forward to you coming to joining us on such and such a date. And I was like, oh, I got the permanent job. So I was excited. I put my 2-week notice in right then and there, but my love for sci-fi has always drawn me to electronics, to the development and the science aspect of fixing things, troubleshooting, seeing what would be the outcome if I put this much power here or this much power there. And so coming to the field of electronics and actually doing the work, the excitement is what kept me going. There was something new every day. You never knew what you was going to come into. So working in the field was such a great experience because you're out there, everybody, you see what I love even more, you would see the spectators out on the airport looking at the planes take off. And I'm an advocate for tech ops. And I say, y'all need to see the equipment, not just the planes. We have to monitor and maintain all the equipment. So my love for electronics, my support in my family, no one else did this that I grew up with. So being a trailblazer in that aspect of going out, even teaching and showing kids STEAM initiatives is what brought me and led me into the field of electronics and working in the aviation industry. Just that love of messing with the equipment, breaking it up and seeing how I'm gonna fix it back together.
It sounds like Marie's dad could have called you too.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Just in the comment, says there's a comment from Calamar, says, love tech ops, and Marie, so unsung heroes of the NAS. Heart proficiency prevails. So excellent. So the same question over to you, Sharice. How did you become part of the agency?
So like you said in my bio, I came from the Department of Veteran Affairs, but ironically, I'm a licensed therapist. And along with that, I moved to Los Angeles about 5 months before the pandemic. During that time, I was not able to provide any accurate therapy to the veterans, being that I was dealing with my own issues with all my family and friends being across the country. So I did take a position within the Department of Veteran Affairs. It was in the financial department, but it was about the budget, cleaning up data, holding different departments of the hospital accountable. And then as I was just looking through USA Jobs, I saw a similar job, management and program analyst, but clearly not with veterans, but with the FAA. Being that I've never worked with the FAA before, I was like, I'm gonna look into this. And it's just ironic because at the VA, I'm cleaning up data for the veterans and the facilities, whereas now at the FAA, it's comparable, but I'm now working with aerospace engineers, program managers, and I'm just looking at the FAA as a whole. So it's been a change, but rewarding at the same time.
Okay, thank you so much. And Rhonda, how did you become part of the agency? You're on mute, my love. There you go.
Okay. Well, I started my career out of the Army as an apprentice in a nationally recognized electrical program. Eventually, I became licensed, and I found myself just constantly traveling and never knowing where I was going to be from one week to the next. So I decided it was just time to try and find something more stationary. I had been told about usajobs.gov, and I had made applications previously, but this time I got really serious and I went into specifically Department of Transportation, and then I entered the search term electrical, and I don't really recall seeing FAA attached to the job description, but I I made application. I submitted my resume through what I thought was a DOT portal, and I was called by the Human Resource Office, and I guess Oklahoma City, and they set me up for an interview. And with the encouragement of, at the time, my parents were still alive, my dad, my mom, and I accepted the job. In 9.5 years, I'm still here.
Yay. Thank you so much for that, Rhonda. So now I'm going to jump into the Q&A. And I guess I'll go ahead and give this question to you, Marie. How did you navigate through your tell us about a challenge you had to overcome to advance in your career.
I think because I loved electronics and that was my proficiency, having a very technical background actually held me back a little bit, because I was viewed more as a program manager. And so I knew I had to do something to diversify myself to show that I had higher level management skills. And so I took some time I can't say I took some time out because I did it while I was working, but I went back to school and got my master's. And because I'm an engineer and I wanted one I knew I'd be more successful with. So I actually secured a management and technology degree, which had all the MBA background, but it was geared more towards engineers. So I think once I did that, it goes back again to the confidence and credibility. Now I was prioritizing projects for the East Coast as the account manager, and I had a better financial sense for some of the cost estimates that were coming in, and balancing of resources based on the skills I got there. And I think that's really what made the difference for me. Otherwise, I was starting to get pigeonholed as a technical problem solver.
Thank you for that. So next question's over to you, Bridget. Tell us about a time, have you ever been the only female in your department? And if so, can you share some resolve that made you successful there?
Thank you for
I
the
think
question.
we've all been there.
Yes, thank you for the question. I have to say that initially, I was not the only female when I first was switching over to a 2101, which is an airway transportation system specialist, ATSS. And this was out of Chicago Midway. The young lady who is now, I call my sister friend, she is the one of one of my many mentors who trained me, but she soon took another position. At that particular time, I then became the only female at that particular location. Then when I transitioned to Indianapolis, I was also the only female. So being the only female, when I say that sometimes I just never really thought about it until later years about the position that you have to take, the mindset that you have to have. I didn't even see anybody. I just saw my work. And I'm gonna tell you, whenever somebody left that room to go do some work, I was right there with them, or I bet I beat them to the car because they was gonna take me everywhere they went to do any work. You wasn't gonna get past me. So the mindset of being the only female, you have to make sure you don't allow that to block you. So in reference to challenges and being the only female, yes, there were topics that you weren't able to share among your peers because of the dynamics of the topics and relatable issues. So you have to make sure that what you said was relevant. I always made sure that I spoke according to documentation. So when it came down to it, you could not, if you wanted to question me, I was gonna pull it out the book and you can know it. I showed confidence. So I tried not to, if I did, I didn't know, to allow me being the only female be an issue. Because if you don't show it, you can't feed into that culture. So make sure that you know, if you are the only female, do your job. Know what you're doing. If, you know, have the conversations. I drew them more into me at the end when I look back over my career and the places that I've been as the only female. And changing that mindset when there was a challenge or issue of being the only female, talking to them. I took leadership roles. I made sure I was like the rep or I was the lead on projects. We work with them. I would end up being the go-to person, end up being the person who did the OJT, on the job training, or the performance examiner to develop others who came behind me. It was years before I was not the only female at any of my positions that I do in the field. And even currently in my location right now, it's a staff, but I am the only female program support specialist, and I continue to train and develop people as well. So making sure, if you are, do not let that be a barrier for you. Do your job, step up, speak up, give the ideas, give solutions, and give training to others around you so you can, I made sure I was relevant.
Right.
So that's what I would like to share in reference to being the only female. Do not allow that to be a barrier for you, and do not allow others to create it to be a barrier for you.
Thank you so much for that, Bridget. The comments are in there,
You're welcome.
that for individuals that have made the transition from hands-on technician to management, what did you find more difficult to let go of and coach future individuals to grow themselves? So that's a question that we'll hold off to the end. The next question I want to ask is to you, Rhonda. How did you, if you ever had to, speak up for yourself?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I remember as a child, I was always told that I didn't speak up for myself. And I think as I grew into an adult and faced the challenges of having a career, you know, and making a way for myself, that I would just do things and I would try to maintain a good attitude. You know, they say attitude is altitude.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff is going to come your way, and you're going to be swimming upstream, and just by showing the initiative to continue on and strive to make it through the day and be successful with that, you know, from in that day. And I was a construction worker for the most part. So each day I went in, I had a segment of something to build. Like I had to fabricate my own conduit a lot of times, and found myself working for myself quite often. The question, did I speak up for myself? Actually, I think more of it was just showing, not quitting. That's how I spoke up for myself.
Excellent. Thank you. This is going to be the last question over to you, Sharice, and then we're going to go to the Q&A. So my question to you, Sharice, is you started with the VA and now you're with the FAA. So how did you navigate through those various positions? And one thing I wanted to say is I'm glad you said you took a break because you were doing like your therapy. I'm glad you took a break to put your mask on first, because you can't help anybody else if you don't. And that's what we don't do as women a lot of times, put our mask on first. But that's my question over to you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
You started with the VA and now you're with the FAA. So how did you navigate through your various positions?
It was very hard because, like I said, I had just relocated to Los Angeles from Brooklyn. So again, like I said, just seeing the comparison with just the data, and also with being a therapist, me speaking up for others, advocating for others, it was easy to do the same for myself, so that when I was applying for positions and interviewing and things of that nature, I was able yet not only to speak up for myself and talk about things that I've accomplished and how I've been successful through my career, but I was able to also go back and say, but this is what I did for others. So part of speaking up, yes, speaking up for yourself, but In my situation, it was me speaking up for others that made me strong enough to speak up for myself. There's a lot of people on this call that know I don't bite my tongue now, but that wasn't me all the time. I was an athlete growing up. So a lot of times I was on co-ed teams and I never said anything. I played, but I would say things. I wouldn't say things. I would be on the bench and things of that nature. And in hindsight, when I look back, I think that kind of started me saying, hey, this is not okay. I have to start advocating and speaking up for myself. And that is what I do in my professional career, in my personal life. I've been a single mom for 20 years. I've had to do it for that as well. Just speaking up and knowing your worth. I think with females, we forget to know our worth. And when others go low, we stay high. A lot of people say, you know, Michelle Obama said that, but that is the truth. And a lot of times when you're the only female in a situation, in a environment, it is easy for kind of the men to kind of have the good old boys club and speak on things and share things amongst themselves. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable, fine, you know, reach out to another female, maybe not even in your department, but somewhere else. Like that's what I did with the FAA. I started reaching out to other individuals within the DLT, specifically females, to understand my position and for me to be strong enough joining the FAA and being able to be an advocate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharice. So we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Leslie, are you able to read the Q&A?
Yes, I am.
All right. If you want to take it from here, I would appreciate it.
Awesome. The first question is for Sharice. As for now, how do you use your prior experience in handling situations with the FAA in balancing assignments and people?
I think for me, my personality now, I don't have a problem asking for help, speaking with others. Asking for help is a main thing because I had to do a lot of that with navigating what my position was and kind of what my responsibilities were. So at the VA, because I was specifically working with the VA for 6 or 7 years and I was a therapist prior to the VA, I kind of had a hold on kind of my positioning and what I needed to do. But coming to the FAA, it was difficult. But like I said, with my personality being able to speak up, that transition was somewhat easy because I got the assistance and help from others, specifically women, that I needed to be able to do my job successfully.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. The next question is for Marie. What's your recommendations for others? You mentioning about being pigeonholed into technical tasks. And the question is, what is your recommendation for others facing this issue?
Well, I can say from my own experience, I kind of saw it happening. You know, I'd be recommended for technical teams and things like that. And I wanted to be recommended for, you know, a broader, you know, positions with a broader horizon. So the two things that I did was broaden my understanding horizons. For a brief moment of time, I stepped out of the FTA. Out of the FAA, went over to Federal Transit. So my understanding of transportation was broader. And I think that helped. But I also think, like, I knew I had reached, I had done what I wanted to do with engineering, and I wanted to get more into the management role, and I wanted to be able to demonstrate and highlight those skills. So for me, it was going to the next step, going back to school. I went nights and weekends. I think I was maybe 10 or 12 years into my career when I decided that was a good step for me. So it's just a matter of continuously doing your own skills assessment. Where am I and where do I want to be?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lorna, we have one last question for Rhonda. Coming from being prior military, do you believe that to be a pattern in helping you handling maybe similar situations of being the only female or any other obstacles?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of times that I was the only female. Actually, I don't know. I was actually the only female tanker that the Army had at one time. So um, it's come to be expected, and you just kind of, just be uh, polite. And always, I don't really try to boss or tell them, anyone else what to do. In fact, I'd rather that, they, include me more and ask me, for more help. But I haven't met another female engineering technician with the FAA. That doesn't mean we don't have one. I just haven't met them yet. But the Army gave me a lot of good experience on, you got to go out there and you take the job by the horns, and it's not always easy. In fact, it's a lot of my assignments have been very, very tough. The logistically of just getting to the assignment, to the dispatch, and then once you get there, the job it's challenging. And it's always nice though when you had a toolmate who was willing to, work with you. So if you just, I guess, would be seeking out and finding that other individual who's willing to work with you and help maintain your confidence, that would be I think the best suggestion.
Okay. Lorna, do we have time for one more question? We just received an additional question for Marie.
We do, sure.
All right. All right, Marie, how easy was it for you to take a step back, and did it make more clear where you would choose to go or was headed or moving forward?
You know, at the time it was easy because of where I was with my I had young kids really young kids at the time. And I knew I needed that network of family, because the network of family always support. As I said, I probably greater than I did as a field engineer. So having that network, I knew I would have to rely on my family network if I was going to do anything further, to assist with the kids and everything that was going on. So it was relatively easy, I knew I needed to have close proximity to them, knew they needed to, have that bond they had with their grandparents. And I think it would have been more difficult if they had been in different places, in their maturity. It would have been a little bit more of a difficult decision for me, but it was relatively easy given where I was with family.
Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Bridget Turner, our national president. Bridget, are you there?
I think she might have to step away for a second. Katie, can you fill in for Bridget and maybe discuss the upcoming training conference information? Is that possible?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to everyone for your wonderful input as part of our panel. I do see Bridget pop back up on the screen on my side, but just to take a quick moment, yes. In terms of our national training conference coming up this summer in June, we are hosting it here in Kansas City. Very excited with the theme of leading from the heartland. You should have seen some documentation come through, and as always, please check out our website at www.technicalwomen.org for more great information. Our national training conferences always bring wonderful career development training, personal growth opportunities, and of course, networking. Please come and connect with other like-minded individuals, learn more about how you can progress your career, and we always strive to make sure that our members are always striving for their best selves in our training programs. So with that, I'd like to double check, make sure that if Bridget is available. I don't see her popping back. So with that, looking at the run of show, I want to make sure that we also talk about our next opportunity, our next event, which is occurring next Wednesday. Please come join us at the same time, and we will bring you another wonderful installment of our Women's History Month program. Thank you again, everyone. And I want to make sure that our national president always has the opportunity to tell everyone thank you.
If she's not available, Katie, I just want to read some of the comments that are in the chat, which is
Please go
fantastic.
ahead. I think that would be wonderful.
I mean, we had some wonderful comments in the chat. And one
I
of them was
also
love
see
hearing how
Sharice has
things.
her
I'm sorry,
hand raised.
who does? Oh, go ahead, Sharice. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just before closing, I know there's some individuals who are on this call or may want to share with other females about too. So I just wanted to let everyone know, you know, if they are interested in joining, to reach out to Bridget Turner and becoming a member of our wonderful organization.
Yay. So some of the comments are, I'm enjoying the session and especially hearing about Marie's background. I worked with Marie over the past few years and did not know how she forged her path into the regional administrator's office. That's from Taronda. Also, inspiring talent, skills, and abilities. Hands up to technical women's perseverance to soar in with and through their passions. Another one, love how Miss James and Turner speak of change, yet evolving and pressing forward. Meanwhile, what you love to do and what you know best. So that's awesome. I am just really, really excited. Wonderful women to hear such dynamic stories, and thank you all for known and unknown for the future of following in your footsteps. So there's a question here. Does the FA support financially for training events such as the one in Kansas City? So that's to the 2 conference. So does the FA, Sharisha, shaking your head yes?
Yeah, I just confirmed for the conference for employees, E2.
Helen, you have your hands up?
Yes, ma'am. In some conditions, they will. It depends on what has set aside for your organization on training. And since this is considered official training, talk with your leadership. Ask them, does this meet with our guidelines? Do we have money set aside for my training that is out of the normal? Have that conversation. You know, you're going to need to have that conversation in the future anyway. So why not start with something like this? And if we can help, by all means, reach out to your regional manager, the national vice president, or the national president for assistance with that. We've all been in your shoes and we can help with that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Catherine Umer wanted to know if there were time for more questions. And this does count as training. So Catherine, you have another question? You can type it in the chat if you want. You can edit to the Q&A. And then somebody says, does FA support it? Totally depends on your manager. So thank you for that information. Okay, Catherine has a question in the chat. So let's see. That question was answered, Catherine. That was the comment about Marie being pigeonholed, and she mentioned that she went back to school. So I'm hoping that you were able to hear her when her information was regarding that. So with that, we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to turn it back over to Katie, our National Vice President, to go ahead and wrap up the session. I just wanted to thank everyone else again for attending. Thank you to our fabulous panelists. This was excellent. I'm glad that we were able to share this information with everyone. And this is going to be, this is just another great session. We hope that you'll be able to join us next week. So with that, over to you, Katie.
Thank you very much, Lorna, and thank you again to our wonderful panel for the discussion today. As a reminder, our next event is titled The Playing Field, and it is scheduled for next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Again, we will be highlighting STEM achievers. Very excited to see some really great students and other participants show off their STEAM skills. Remember, that is science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Thank you again, everyone. Have a wonderful day and enjoy celebrating Women's History Month. Thank you again. Have a fantastic day, everyone.